Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. A massive fire wipes out 4 businesses in Kerrisdale.
It's very sad to see this happening.
And several people are out of their homes. Plus, 4 specific demands.
And in terms of the assassination, what did Canadian agencies and security forces know in Canada?
Sikh leaders from across the country send their concerns to the Prime Minister amid tensions with India around the killing of a Surrey Gurdwara leader. And opposition MLAs slammed the BC Conservative leader for his comments on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
We don't need to use what happened between Canada and Indigenous peoples in any form of analogy.
But John Rustad says he stands by them.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away tonight. An overnight fire in Vancouver's Kerrisdale neighborhood has wiped out several businesses and displaced numerous people. It's not yet clear what sparked the blaze, but as Yasmin Khanea shows us, it's bringing back memories of yet another massive fire.
The fire broke out shortly after 10 o'clock Sunday night on West 41st Avenue near East Boulevard and burned well into the next day.
We had 5 commercial businesses that were affected by this fire. 4 of them are a complete and total loss.
Crews found flames and heavy smoke in the rear of this building. The fire tore through a Nando's chicken shop, a bakery, a yogurt store, a vegetable market, and a Vietnamese restaurant.
It's very sad to see this happening. That Vietnamese restaurant, I go there like almost once every week.
A handful of people living in residential units on the 2nd floor have also been forced from their homes.
But they're definitely not going to be able to come back tonight, and it'll be a few days for sure.
It took 55 firefighters to put out the blaze. 2 suffered minor injuries, but no one else was hurt.
I'm glad to hear that nobody was killed, and hopefully everyone who's injured gets, recovers well, and they find out what happens.
This fire is bringing back memories of another major blaze in 2017 just down the street at 41st and Maple Street. That fire also destroyed several businesses. They had to be torn down because of the damage. Now all that remains is this empty lot, still awaiting development permits.
Unfortunately, here we are yet again losing local businesses who have weathered the storms of the pandemic and are back to being vibrant and operating, and now they've been lost and more damage to the area, basically.
It's not yet clear what sparked this latest fire. The Business Association says it's reaching out to the business owners to see how it can help. Yasmin Khanea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Several Sikh leaders from across Canada have now sent a list of demands to the Prime Minister. It comes after a meeting on Saturday at the same Surrey Gurdwara where a prominent pro-Khalistan activist was shot dead in June. The CBC's Tanya Fletcher has more on their concerns.
About India's involvement in the assassination.
3.5 months after Hardeep Singh Nijjar was gunned down, safety remains top of mind for those who gathered here.
People used to come here for their safety as a refugee and stuff, right? And these days, we are not safe anywhere in the world.
Just a few hundred meters from where the killing happened, a group of Sikh leaders from across the country met to advocate for their own safety.
This is so disturbing for us. This should be not done in these countries. Like, we know this all happens in India, Punjab, but even now in these countries, we don't feel safe now.
Last month, the Prime Minister sent geopolitical shockwaves accusing India of involvement in the killing.
In the strongest possible terms, I continue to urge the government of India to cooperate with Canada.
The Indian government has denied involvement in Nijjar's death. Last week, another activist from the same Gurdwara told CBC News he was warned by law enforcement about threats to his life. He says a duty to warn document was delivered to his home by RCMP at the end of August.
Are you worried?
Yeah, fikr to hai. Of course.
Now, out of the weekend meeting has come 4 specific requests: the immediate suspension of intelligence cooperation with India, an independent public inquiry on the assassination, the expulsion of a senior Indian diplomat, and the establishment of a foreign agent registry.
And in terms of the assassination, what did Canadian agencies and security forces know in Canada? Where does the fault or responsibility lie with Canadian agencies and policymakers?
They say their list of demands has been delivered to the federal government. CBC News has not yet received a response from our request for comment from the Prime Minister's office. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
More than 600 Metro Vancouver workers are now in a legal strike position, and their union says job action will begin soon. The employees maintain water services like water treatment and air quality monitoring, among others. Their union served 72-hour strike notice on Friday. They're asking for higher wages and protections for workers as the cost of living rises across our region. If job action does begin, though, the union says essential services like water treatment will continue. Metro Vancouver is the regional government that provides and coordinates services for 21 cities across the Lower Mainland. Meanwhile, workers at the Rogers Sugar Refinery in Vancouver picketed outside the factory today.
The company has come to us asking for continuous shifting, so that's running the plant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where right now it's just ran Monday to Friday, with the occasional weekend run-throughs to get the product out there and get more sugar and liquid sugar and stuff like that. That's actually out there.
The picket comes after employees voted 100% in favor of a strike. More than 135 workers at the refinery have been without a contract since February. They're represented by the Public and Private Workers of Canada Union. They're striking to save seniority benefits, seniority rights, benefits, and an employee assistance program. The leader of the BC Conservative Party is standing by comments he posted online on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, despite criticism that those same comments inappropriately compared teaching students about sexual orientation and gender identity to the abuse of Indigenous children in residential schools.
I'm a firm believer that parents have the right to be able to raise their children, to be able to be a part of their education. And what happened to our Indigenous people is obviously a very stark reminder of what happens when government does decide to interfere with the raising of children.
Rostad's post has been slammed by residential school survivors and other MLAs who say it politicizes the death of children at residential schools in order to support what's known as the parental rights movement.
We don't need to use what happened between Canada and Indigenous peoples in any form of analogy. We need to recognize that these events deserve, and rightfully so, their own time of reflection.
Rostad has long been a supporter of parental rights, a term critics argue is a misnomer for anti-trans policies. Mounties in North Vancouver say a driver with a learner's license has learned a very expensive lesson. The force says it stopped a car on Friday going almost 200 kilometers an hour in an 80 zone. The RCMP claims the 19-year-old was racing with another vehicle when officers stopped him on Highway 1 near Lonsdale. They say when they pulled him over, he said, quote, the other driver was going faster. He also had no supervisor in the vehicle and more than one passenger, which isn't allowed. He's been handed almost $1,500 in fines, and the car has been seized for 7 days. Officers weren't able to stop the other car. Some people in BC's Armenian community say it is time for Canada to step up with more help. More than 100,000 refugees have now fled a region since Azerbaijan took full control of that territory. As Janella Hamilton reports, the UN has now sent a humanitarian team to help provide aid.
A long line of vehicles fronting Armenian flags and signs that read "Stop Azerbaijan Aggression," leaving from Richmond, headed for the Vancouver Art Gallery Sunday afternoon. They want people to know about the growing conflict and urgent need for more humanitarian aid.
For the first time in human history, Armenians are no longer in control of Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh.
After a long history of conflict, Azerbaijan retook control of the enclave in a military offense nearly 2 weeks ago, which reportedly killed at least 200 ethnic Armenians in 2 days of bombing. Fearing for their lives, close to 120,000 people have fled their ancestral homeland.
People have been there since the Armenian genocide, and they've seen 4 generations of war, crime, hatred, and just they're trying to survive, and now they have no hope.
Local journalists have reported displaced civilians sheltering in public buildings with no food or electricity in the region's capital. 14-year-old Aya Chapanian says it breaks her heart to think of the pain and suffering children like her are going through.
Their childhood has been taken away from them, how they are being separated from their families, from their own country where they have lived and born and grew up in.
I've been in touch with some of the children in the last couple of weeks to talk about what's been going on, and they are extremely distraught.
She says she's worried for her family members in Armenia.
Even the so-called safe regions currently, we don't know how long that's going to be for. Right now, they have a lot of power against us, military power, and they are not afraid to use it.
Also at the rally, BC's Health Minister Adrian Dix, who's standing in solidarity with the Armenian community in their demands for more diplomatic pressures.
This is something as a whole country we need to make a strong statement about. One, that it's unacceptable. 2, that we're going to support Armenia.
They are also calling on the federal government to impose economic sanctions on Azerbaijan. Until then, these protesters say the future of their home country and heritage remains uncertain. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
People on Vancouver Island are hoping to see some help for housing as the province unveils new building targets for other cities. Our Claire Palmer is in Nanaimo, hearing from advocates who say addressing the missing middle of housing is critical.
We've made some real progress to deliver the homes.
BC's housing minister has hinted toward key pieces of legislation expected to be passed this fall, designed to add multi-unit housing for middle-income earners.
We're going to be unlocking homes, creating conditions that encourage faster delivery of homes in communities throughout this province.
In Nanaimo, advocates are calling for medium-dense housing like this: low-rise apartments, duplexes, triplexes, and walk-ups. They say that would best address the missing middle, which refers to housing options that fall between high-density living and detached houses.
These kinds of missing middle developments allow us to densify for cheaper and more gradually than building tall towers like they do in kind of Vancouver, Toronto. So you have the gradual benefit of building these smaller, more human-scale housing forms.
He adds the province's mandatory housing targets are a start, forcing municipalities to meet specific supply requirements. Local governments are also acting. Victoria recently removed red tape barriers to build more missing middle housing.
Victoria is on the right track. So it hasn't come to Nanaimo, like you said, this kind of provincial mandate, but it's expected to. And so far, council and staff are definitely on board.
We absolutely need those people in our industries. It's crucial, not just in the city of Victoria, but around the country. And so that's one of the really driving forces behind why we're trying to strip away every impediment possible from being able to build faster and better across the whole city.
For those who need it most, more options for affordable housing can't come soon enough.
It's been really difficult being in the service industry. I'm lucky enough to get some gratuities. I heard the mayor say, that he needs us as workers. Well, we need the government right now. It needs to be more of a renter's market.
The fall sitting of the BC legislature gets underway this week. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
As Claire mentioned, MLAs will be back in Victoria for the start of the fall sitting tomorrow, and government members are hopeful their proposed housing legislation will make a difference.
This fall, starting next week, you'll start seeing all the legislation that government's committed to, and by the end of the session, we expect all of it to have passed and in the changes being implemented in communities.
The government says it is on track to deliver a projected 108,000 homes completed or under active construction by the end of 2028. He's back. Meteorologist Russ LeCate joins us now with a first look at the weather. Man, it is October.
What a change.
Oh, boy. And you're here to tell us why.
Yeah, we were chatting off the air about what a lovely weekend it was and how we've had a bit of a drought going on, and that was adjusted a little bit today. We have got a new drier weather maker just a little farther offshore, that high-pressure ridge building up it's only going to be strong enough to influence what's happening over the southern part of the province. And because of that, I suspect we'll actually get another day's worth of rain from northern Vancouver Island northward up the coast tomorrow, drying out over the central interior. Temperatures in the upper teens, maybe close to 20. What about Metro Vancouver, where there's a hint of sun in tomorrow's forecast? It arrives in the morning. Not a lot tomorrow, but a whole lot in the long-range picture. Dan, those details a little later this show.
Sounds good, Russ. Thanks. Two scientists have won a Nobel Prize for their research that led to today's COVID vaccines. Now, their work changed the world. Right after this. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. One of Vancouver's most popular tourist hotspots has become the backdrop of a growing rabbit problem. Granville Island has now euthanized many of the hoppy animals because they've been attracting predators that have sparked a safety risk. As Michelle Morton shows us, animal advocates argue there are other options.
If you've been here lately, chances are you've seen these residents hopping around. Rabbits have become a more common sight in recent months. A spokesperson for Granville Island says when they first became aware of the bunny problem, they contacted the Rabitats Rescue Society, but the organization didn't have capacity to take them all in. Granville Island says the growing number of rabbits drew a growing number of coyotes, sparking a safety risk for visitors and their pets. And so they've removed many of the rabbits, taking them to a licensed veterinarian to be euthanized.
These are domestic pets that have been dumped, bred.
At Sunday's rally, animal advocates insist the bunnies need to be helped, not harmed.
There's a lot of people supporting the rabbits in this area, and that we want them to be removed, spay and neutered, and then contained, rather than trapped and killed.
It's not the only Vancouver tourist spot overrun with rabbits. Just a few miles away, Jericho Beach has long been a bunny hotspot, with visitors urged to avoid them. In this case, the Rabitats Rescue Society has said it's been in talks with Granville Island since late spring and says it told Granville Island it's better to trap the animals in the late fall and winter because they'll be easier to catch because they'll be hungrier, the population will be naturally reduced, and babies will not be left in their nests. The charity also said they requested more time to find a place for all the rabbits.
The coyotes were here anyway, and the reason there are more coyotes here now is that because of the construction just south of the end of the Burrard Bridge, it's dislodged them for their habitat. They've cut down all that bushland, so all the coyotes are moving eastward, and they're here. I'd rather let nature take its course.
Animal advocates say they want to see new bylaws brought in to limit domestic rabbit breeding, including regulations for breeders and a requirement to spay or neuter any bunnies before they're sold. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
The scientists who helped push forward mRNA research that led to the creation of COVID vaccines have now won the 2023 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. Our Thomas Dagla looks into how their work has helped change the world.
Even after their decades of work helped to save millions of lives, for these two scientists, an early morning phone call from the Nobel Committee seemed too good to be true.
And we said, this has to be a prank. Some anti-vaxxer is playing with us.
It was no joke. long before COVID-19 prompted urgent demand for messenger RNA vaccines. Catalin Carrico and Drew Weissman knew the technology showed promise. Their breakthrough earned them prizes before, but none as prestigious as this one.
So this year's Nobel Prize recognizes their basic science discovery that fundamentally changed our understanding of how mRNA interacts with the immune system.
A Hungarian-born biochemist raised in a home with no running water, Carrico started researching RNA in the 80s, but struggled to find funding or even much interest, until a chance meeting at a university photocopier in '97 led her to Weissman.
I brag about that I can do RNA, and Drew was interested in vaccines, and that's how our collaboration started.
We spent the rest of, 20 plus years working together, figuring out how to get it to work.
Those mRNA COVID shots give the immune system genetic code, teaching it how to destroy a virus. Carrico and Weissman discovered how to get that code through immune defenses.
You can't have a better example of how something became useful for the whole world.
The Nobel Committee credits the breakthrough for blunting the pandemic, and experts suspect the feat can be repeated to fight allergies or even cancer.
I hope that these technologies and the recognition by the Nobel Committee of these technologies is going to, for the public, make it apparent how incredible these technologies are.
They made a molecular-sized discovery with a massive impact, poised to save lives for generations. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Back in this province, the BC First Nations community of Akum is marking the beginning of a partnership that will see international students living and learning in their community. And as Corey Bullock explains, is being lauded as a celebration of culture.
A dark past has now become a beacon of hope for the community of Akum.
Every time I get an opportunity to tell one of our stories in this building, it's a victory.
St. Eugene Mission operated as a residential school until 1970. Today, it's an award-winning resort owned by 4 Tinaha bands and the Shuswap Indian Band.
I think we all know across Canada the stories of residential school, and I think most people are very familiar with that #1 rule: you do not speak your own language. Like, that was the #1 rule in all of these schools.
Now it's a welcoming place of learning where the Tinaha language is celebrated.
Institution that was once used in an attempted cultural genocide is now a vehicle for students from around the world to learn Tanaka history, Tanaka language, Tanaka culture.
The first cohort of students from Purcell Collegiate International School were welcomed.
And so once these students go home, they're going to be returning home maybe with an orange shirt, from Orange Shirt Day, and the message that's on that shirt, and having family ask about that.
Akum and Purcell Collegiate signed a memorandum of understanding in 2021, and both parties say that the partnership is a step toward reconciliation.
To have now a school where the children have amazing experience, good experiences, like almost full circles.
Students will learn the BC curriculum with a focus on Indigenous ways of knowing and First Peoples principles of learning. They'll be immersed in Tinaha culture.
I want to make sure that the students, when they come here, get an opportunity to be in relationship with Akhameskapikups and all living things, not just the human beings that are here, but all living things that are here.
But for today, it's an opportunity to recognize the impact of the residential school system. And for Akum, Pierre says it's a celebration of resilience. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
After the break, a Richmond-grown pumpkin has won big for just being big. More on the pumpkin named Mama and the man who grew her. That's next.
It's called the Victoria Main Line, a logging road which cuts deep into Vancouver Island's White River Valley and deeper still into some of British Columbia's richest forest land on the island's central east coast. Along this road is a stand of trees known on logging maps simply as Vic 20, a 27-hectare patch of forest the size of nearly 7 football fields that from the outside looks pretty unremarkable. That's what Dave Morrison thought too, the day he and his two-man crew were called in to begin clearing the trees to make way for a logging road. Then they took a closer look.
This area would be a faller's paradise to fall.
But this time, the fallers chose to leave paradise untouched.
We've never seen an area like this. It's unique because of you got big cedar at one end of it, you got your big fir in the center, and then sort of second growth on the outside. This here's got everything. There's fish streams. You can walk out to the edge there, and there's a river right there. We couldn't fall it. We talked about it. I phoned the supervisor. We told him that we weren't going to fall it. We couldn't.
That's your job.
We've got a job to do, but under these circumstances with this stand of timber, we just couldn't do it. It was too nice. We said we weren't going to do it, and that was all there was to it.
Strong words, more like the kind of words you'd expect to hear from people who call themselves environmentalists. Usually, it's pretty tough to get environmental groups and loggers to agree on much of anything. After all, the environmentalists are out to save trees, and loggers are paid to cut them down. So when word got out that there was a group of loggers wanting to preserve a wilderness area, some people were pretty surprised, including their employer.
Well, this particular circumstance certainly took us by surprise. Our reaction from our crew took us a little bit by surprise, but...
And Macmillan Blodell says while the company has agreed to hold off logging Vic 20 for now, it won't guarantee the loggers a permanent piece of paradise. The company, which logs this area as far as you can see, and then some, is still trying to sort out the short-term costs and the long-term effects. Are you worried that you say yes, you set a precedent?
Of course. We have a lot of areas that, by different people looking at it through different eyes, will assess an area differently than somebody else. So, yeah, we have that concern. But we'll deal with each one of them as they come up, and that's about the only thing we can do.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On October 20th, join CBC Vancouver's Leanne Young at the Big Sisters Soiree Gala, an evening for the community to come together celebrating mentorship and resilience of youth. And the Chutzpah Festival returns November 2nd to 23rd with an exciting lineup of performances including dance, music, theater, and more. Festival tickets at chutzpahfestival.com.
Meteorologist Russ LeCate joins us now with the BC-wide weather forecast on another damp South Coast day.
Oh, a bit damp, absolutely. Yeah. We were joking there, Dan. Of course, Sunday was so nice and sunny, and I dozed off on the couch, and I woke up this morning. Well, what happened? Where did that rain come from? We've actually got a nice time lapse here from the masters in behind the system here at CBC. Check out that time lapse of the clouds and rain rolling in here first thing this morning. Everybody got wet. That was widespread rain, and it's exactly what we needed. It hasn't been wet across the entire country. I don't know if you were chatting with any friends or relatives back east, but my goodness, it was warm back in Ontario, setting record highs today in areas like Geraldton. It got up to 30 degrees. Your current is 20. Thunder Bay got to 30 degrees as well. Those values just high enough to trigger some heat warnings with a humidex value near 35. Now for tomorrow, very warm again across much of Ontario, southern Quebec. A little bit of smoky skies happening in parts near James Bay, and again, northern Alberta, parts of Northwest Territories. Some smoky skies bulletins continue. Not really here in BC. The rain helped to clear things up locally today. Showers across the central and southern interior will dissipate for this evening. Redevelop tomorrow. That dirty ridge on the coastline pushes more rain across the northern part of the province. Why do we call it a dirty ridge for the south? So much cloud and junk still moving down through that ridge tomorrow. It's a dry day. It's pleasant, but there's a lot of cloud cover around on Tuesday. Wednesday might even be sprinkly or drizzly in the morning. These clouds are going to hang around for the better part of almost 48 hours yet. Later this week, it really starts to clear on Thursday. warmer into Friday. That kind of sets the stage for your long-range forecast, which includes temperatures nearing the mid-20s inland for Friday and Saturday. Sunshine to wrap up the week. The rain is back next Monday. That sounds like pretty good timing, Dan.
Not bad. Thank you, Russ.
My pleasure.
Richmond man has won the National Pumpkin Weigh-Off in the U.S. He's been growing giant gourds for over 15 years, and this one, nicknamed Mama, finally landed him the North American title. Take a look.
Let's hear it for our winner at $9 a pound.
So these things, in their peak growing times, put on, give or take, 50 pounds a day. So we got pretty excited about Mama right through the whole summer. It just kept growing and growing and growing. Knowing that this weigh-off in Sacramento was the largest weigh-off in the world, we decided that we'll take them down there and compete. And so between the two, we put them on a flatbed trailer. It was 3,800 pounds of pumpkin going down the road, and we got many, many, many cheers and funny looks and you name it.
Good, here it comes up here. We zeroed the scale, we cleaned the scale.
Everybody laughs and smiles when they see something that big. So that really makes a lot of people happy, including myself and my family and my wife. We just have fun doing it.
Now we know there's a belt. Nicely done. You can always find our newscast online at cbc.ca/BC. Our late show's taking a break for the holiday Monday, so your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That's tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.